Hello comic fans, here's Earl Grey. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite comic creators of all time, and that one is David Mazzucchelli. I have three different books in front of me, and that is Batman Year One in two different versions, Discovering America, a collection of short stories, and Asterios Polyp, or Asterios Polyp, however you pronounce it. There should be a fourth book, and this was, as far as I remember, my first encounter with David Mazzucchelli, and that was his pretty neat, tight, and clever adaptation of Paul Auster's prose novel, The City of Glass. I don't know, I can't find it anywhere, maybe I gave it away. But that was pretty... And it hit me right in my Paul Auster phase when I ate everything up by Paul Auster. Until I got a bit tired of his way of tricking the reader. Sort of a modern Franz Kafka, I thought of. Anyhow, I digress. So, yeah, City of Glass unfortunately couldn't be included here, but really, these three books, for very different reasons, are very important to me. So, obviously, I don't own a ton of different David Mazzucchelli books, but these three books here are very different from each other and covering very different areas of my interest in terms of comics. So, where to start? Maybe with the most familiar stuff, and that's Batman Year One. And just to get this one here out of the way, this is a quite beautiful edition, oversized, even bigger than the Absolute edition, with this foil slipcase, even though, I mean, foil tends to be a bit scratched in places. I just mention it because I try to flip this here on eBay since... forever for pretty moderate price, I thought, but eBay works in mysterious ways. Sometimes you don't get money at all for real beautiful stuff, and sometimes people start bidding wars about stuff that is maybe not so close to your heart or my heart. So this book here is pretty beautiful, but I really had to upgrade, sort of, even though this is a bit smaller, the more I thought about this book. I mean, there is an older video out there in existence where I told all the people, this book here is not for me because 2 times the same story, how can I be so blunt to buy this? Or they be so blunt to offer this for me to buy it. Obviously, the opposite is true. You just need it, and I, in particular, just need this Absolute edition here. Needed it. We have the the old coloring in the like in the original issues with the letters and all that stuff, but you just have to look on the coloring by Richmond Lewis, and she did amazing stuff with these old comic book issues and this old comic book coloring. And she reinvented it later on. She reinvented herself, her own coloring, with a new edition. So we really have 2 different versions of the same comic, and that's great. And the way they put it into different books here, so that we can put these books side to side to check out all the differences, is a very great way, and I'm really thankful for this kind of presentation. So I really was wrong in saying this maybe is not the best way to get my money. It is absolutely the best way to get my money. So now this is obviously the classic. I mean, Batman Year One, maybe most people's favorite in terms of Batman longer series. I'm not so sure about my own take. Maybe Arkham Asylum or these Loeb Sale books are amazing as well. But yeah, video will come up sooner or later. I postpone it since my beginning here. But it's so hard to put all these classic Batman story arcs in some kind of sequence or top 10 or whatever. Right on the top of my all-time top 10 in terms of short stories is Discovering America. I can't tell you how important this beat-up copy from a library somewhere, Bücherhallen.de, seems to be from Hamburg, I don't know. I have this really since forever. It is by Edition Moderne, cooperation with Arrache-Coeur, or this is some kind of sub-label from them. Swiss publishers of usually very excellent comics, and despite the title, this is the German translation of David Mazzucchelli stories. We have Near Miss, which is or ends pretty surreal, but is not more than some kind of prelude to this one here, Discovering America, about this guy who is a janitor, but in all his spare time he tries to build the ultimate globus representation of the Earth. And he always finds something lacking and tries again and again and obsesses about this project. And then he falls in love with this lady here, and these two obsessions blend into each other, like you can see here, or especially here. And it goes way above his head, as you can see here, since she has not so ambitious projects in mind. She just wants to be happy or to study later on somewhere else. So it's pretty clear, and without any spoiler, that this relationship is doomed from second one. But all this project of getting three-dimensional stuff into two-dimensional stuff, it is obviously a metaphor for many things more, if not cartooning as well. So then he starts from scratch. And by the time when I read this here, I studied geography as well on university. So I was kind of familiar with these problems, but was surprised or fascinated how Mazzucchelli turned these pretty mathematical, pretty dry problems into questions of elemental importance. Here we have big man, about a very big man, not to say a monster, who is bound to this contraption here, arrived at some shore, and the villagers are way above her head. They don't know what to do with him. It turns out that he's a pretty friendly guy, actually. He wants to help, and he makes friends with some part of the population. But eventually he is a monster to others, and so you can imagine how the story will maybe end. Even though you probably have heard about a similar story before, the way David Mazzucchelli conveys the story here in pretty simple but very effectful pictures, and just a few texts just where it's necessary, it is very masterful here, very well done. Now to the big book here, Asterios Polyp, put out by Pantheon. I mean, this is just a masterwork. In terms of graphic novels, you will have a hard time to find some excellent book like this one here. But where to start? Maybe with the design. This is pretty exceptional. So you see the rough inside here, just not covered completely by this dust jacket here. Maybe you can take this metaphorically, because this is a pretty strange character that is almost covered up to his eyebrows in some kind of armament, if you will. I don't know. But the actual book looks like this here. And this is a very rough cardboard cover here. And we have our main guy, Asterios, embossed, smoking on the front cover and not smoking on the back cover, which is pretty important when you have read the story here. Our main guy here is an architect, even though he hasn't built anything. Not even one of his plans has turned into a building. So he calls himself a paper architect. He teaches and he has very high ideas, not to say he is pretty full of himself, like you can see in his portrait here. By the way, this is such a classic cartoony head, just straight out of the Chester Gold School. You can't go very much simpler when you draw a head. Just here this half bow, and there's the half bow, and another half bow, and just this little triangle to make it clear where the chin is, and so on. And by the way, his eyes are always hidden behind this shape here, with just the few exceptions when he's really surprised. Yeah, maybe it's not here really the case, but here he opens up a bit, because it's an imaginary sequence in which he talks to his brother. His brother actually never lived. He was born, stillborn. And one of the, can call it neat tricks, but it's more of this book here, is that it is told by this stillborn brother of Asterios, Ignacio, so his twin. And it's one of the reasons why Asterios Polyp has a strange occupation in his architect life for symmetry, for things that are twofold. And of course there are some ponderings about art and design and so on. But this is not really what got me. What got me were these little moments when Asterios Polyp opened up a bit. And it's for the most part of his life, he was the self-absorbed, pretentious asshole that was so full of himself that he stopped listening to other humans. Actually, this is a trait I'm pretty familiar with, because it's very, it's not uncommon, let's say it, amongst teachers. And maybe I just, you have to ask yourself if you are not at least a bit of this kind of, in this kind of state in which you just listen to your own self, your own ego speaking. And you have to stop in some place. And he is stopped. His apartment burned down. So he has to leave it. And here he goes outside, one of the rare moments when we see him in front, from the front. Usually he's just his head flipping left or right, never looking at us, because, yeah, he lives in his own world. Just fascinating how simple and effectful are these methods that Mazzucchelli used. And here we have the silhouette of his never existing brother, who was nevertheless always somehow with him. He's a satellite in his life. I mean, this book here is so fascinating in so many ways that I don't want to bore you with all the details and what I thought of it. I want to read it yourself if you haven't done it before. But let's put it this way, the most overwhelming part of it for me is the love story aspect. I mean, I'm not the one who usually looks for love stories, especially not in comics. But here we have this very stiff, very assholey character, arrogant, ignorant, and not happy, actually. Character that meets this love of his life. She goes by the name of Hannah. She's an artist. And yeah, he recognized too late initially what he had in her and with her. So at the start of the story here, we come to learn that he was divorced already. So this is a flashback sequence. And my favorite panel here of the whole book is this in the top left corner here, which showcases everything that she does with him. And he smiles, and this ignorant, cold-hearted fool becomes human. And just with this panel, you know that he made some mistake when he let her go. After Asterios Polyp's apartment burned down, he takes some kind of journey. He leaves the city and takes a job, and that's Asterios down there, as a repairman for this guy here in his garage. And these are very down-to-earth people that are literally bring him back to his place. And so we come to know new sides of Asterios Polyp, and he learns about his other sides. He's always the guy for the witty remarks and the irony and sort of, but he has a lot of heart, and no wonder that he, under these circumstances, he is reminded, just by this crude arrangement of furniture that in his new apartment at this auto garage guy in which he lives right now, and he has a blister on his feet, and he reminds him of a similar situation with Hannah, in which he came into his room and made some kind of funny remark, and this leads to a fantastic sequence of pictures, which we just shown, very intimate, very private pictures of his wife Hannah, his former wife, and which showcases just that he still loves her, or maybe he just realizes now, even if it's seemingly too late, that he loved her and what she meant to him. Lots of little, seemingly insignificant moments that add up really to a definition of love, what love is and can be. And I'm pretty sure that I could not have read this book here with the same impact, let's say, 30 years ago. I think I understand lots of these parts here a lot more now when I'm as old as this guy here. And I don't want to spoil this book here for you. It's just enough, I guess, to say that it wraps up as excellent, as perfect as it is throughout the whole story. Even though you may think there are some lengths in between, but they're all rewarding in the end and make sense in the end. And our guy will even build his, he will build a house, actually. He won't be a pure paper architect in the end. That's my little spoiler right there. So, thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.